Hi, welcome back to Tiny House and Off-Grid Resources, the channel where we rebuild, recycle and repair. This is another video in the Naked Blacksmith series where I start a small blacksmithing concern on very little money and with no clues and no previous experience. I'm doing it so that I can make the handles for my tiny stoves, but it's going to open up a whole new world of possibilities in a lot of different areas. But first I've got to get set up. Now I believe that the heart of a blacksmith shop is the anvil. That's where all the work's done. I looked at various options. I looked at buying a cheap anvil, I looked at buying an old used second-hand anvil, and I looked at using alternatives to an anvil. The alternatives to an anvil could have been a small piece of railway track or perhaps an old piece of industrial tooling put onto a large block. Indeed, these things are called swage blocks, and they get used in place of an anvil for specialist stuff. But an anvil is a general purpose tool that most things can be achieved on. If not perfectly, certainly to a usable standard by a skilled tradesman. I opted to buy an anvil. I bought a mid-range anvil for a mid-range price. It's not something I wanted to do, but I was allowing myself $500 US to set up the entire concern. So I spent half of that on a decent anvil. The next thing that a shop needs is a forge. I managed to build this forge from some pieces that were already lying around here and by buying just 1 or 2 gas fittings. The total cost of that, $35 US. It's in another video, which you'll be able to see here. And then, because this is great for doing quick jobs and heating things up quickly, but it's quite expensive to run all day, the next thing I wanted was a coal forge. So in another video, just here, you'll see me building this coal forge, which I only finished last week. A coal forge starts off very smoky. You've got to burn the coal before it can be used to heat steel. So, to get that smoke away in the early stages, I've had to put in an extractor hood. I've now discovered that this needs to be lowered somewhat, but once I've done that, I'll be ready to go. Just 2 days ago, somebody told me that they'd been saving something for me. They went out the back and they brought in a beautiful 1937 Alcoa forge blower. It's in quite a sad state of repairs, but it is complete, and I'm going to be rebuilding that in another video, which will be in a couple of weeks' time. I've been giving this a long, slow soaking heat because it's a thicker piece of material, and I want to quite drastically alter its shape with a big heavy taper to go into my hardy hole. So I've been just letting it soak, letting it get nice and deep. So if you'll excuse me while I give it a bash, and I'll be back with you in a moment. I really do have to make more tongs. I've got to get so many different types of tongs made. This won't hold this firmly at all. You can alter how this forge runs by opening or closing the back brick. You can alter the carburation of the forge and provide a reduction atmosphere in there or an oxidizing atmosphere, depending on what you're looking for. I'm really enjoying playing with both of these forges. It fits in so nicely with the other thing that I do, making the stoves. I get to play with fire lots. Mum would never let me have explosions in the house, so playing with fire has always been the next best thing for me. Now that the channel is up at almost 50,000 subscribers, I feel that I actually owe you guys a little bit of a thank you, because it's getting the views on YouTube that makes a channel popular, and of course it doesn't get popular unless it gets the views on YouTube, and it's the people who choose to subscribe to the channel that make it that way. So you're very much appreciated, thank you. And bearing that in mind, I've gone out and spent a little bit of the meagre income that comes in from YouTube, from the adverts, on a fabulous microphone. It's a professional quality lapel mic with a 50-meter range. And so I'm going to be able to use this in all sorts of situations where there's background noise, like out in my yard, traffic, because I'm on a road that sometimes does get a little bit busy. So I'll be able to use this mic in every video from now on, and it's just going to make it a little bit better for you guys. And that's what it's all about, because that's what we're here for, to make it easy for you guys to understand my strange mixture of Kiwi and English accent, and pick up on my years of faffing about with stuff and learning how to do things on the cheap. My God, look, hey, I really, really do have to concentrate on some ordinary, basic, sensible tongs. Right, I will smack that straight. And I will leave it to cool down. And I'll just temper it quietly, just on the blade area, to get a little bit of tempering back into it again. And that is another tool, because when you're a blacksmith, you can make anything. Hope I can get it out. Easy. Actually, now that shows me that it needs a lot more whacking in that dimension. So it's going back in for another warm up. Right, well that's going to add a few more minutes to the video. So in the meantime, what can we talk about? Right here in front of me. Come around here so you can see. This is a stack of my fireplaces with just the basic body made, ready to be turned into whatever model of fire people require. So I'm getting ahead on those. I've got a stack of my profile cut fire pits, boxes of components for my stoves ready to go, and over here this is all my steel stocks except for the ones that are kept outside, the galvanized or the painted, or the too damn big to get inside pile. These things here, most of it, yeah, I would say over half of that is recycled and about half of it is bought, just roughly looking at it. But as we get down here, these are offcuts that I've picked up out of other people's scrap bins, and a few offcuts of my own. Can you see the white heated towel rail in there? That's something that's a little bit different. And up here, the leftovers from the bar stool that I used as the legs for this forge here. So I'm big on recycling and repurposing things. Over here is my linisher. Now I call it a linisher, but technically it's not. Technically it's a wooden belt sander. But strap it to the wall. I know it's not fast enough, but it's better than spending money that you haven't got. I don't borrow for anything. I wait until I can afford it. If I need it, I'll see if I can make it first. I've got plans in my head for a linisher made out of old skateboard wheels and the motor out of an exercise treadmill. It'll be very powerful and it can be whatever speed I choose it to be because I'll be using the control system from the exercise treadmill. Right, my bar's hot now, so I'm going to put you back over here in relative safety while I have a bash and make this thing fit the hole properly. Now I've forgotten whether it was front to back or side to side that I needed to shave this thing down. So I'll give it a wobble in both. It's sideways, right. So I've got to go front to back. And bring this down a bit. That should squish it out enough to make it tighten the hole in both directions. Let's see. No, it's still too tight this way. You've got to remember, as you do that, you're not taking metal off, you're moving metal, which means that as the metal moves from where it is, it's going to go to where you want it to go. So it's sort of double the effect of grinding and removing the metal. Forging it, moving it from place to place, should have double the effect of grinding, if you know what I mean. So got to get these tongs sorted. But being able to cut stuff off in my hardy hole is going to be a big thing. So I'm concentrating on tools. Now it feels better. We're getting close. It needs just a couple more whacks. It's cooling down now, so I've got to hit a lot harder to have the same effect. And that's one of the main things I've discovered with my 2 or 3 weeks experience in blacksmithing. You start off hitting quite lightly, and as you hit more, it cools down, and you have to hit harder as you get tireder. So it's a hard thing to do. Hey, I'm happy with that. It doesn't rattle now. I might just leave that there to cool down. I'll call that finished. Just check to see if it's straight. Yep, it's straight. I'll wait till that cools down and then quench it at a lower temperature. And I'll only quench the blade. So I might as well turn this off. It's only costing money, but it is keeping the place lovely and warm. I am so pleased with this. Look, it's been going for about an hour and the outside of it is only just warm. I can leave my hand there. It's about 50 degrees Celsius. And if you go back to that earlier video that I mentioned, you'll see that these kiln bricks are actually a building product. They've got a huge fire rating, but they are intended for building firewalls between properties. And one of the great things that they recommend them for is for shifting them into inaccessible places, because they weigh about 1/3 of the because they weigh about 1/3 of the weight of an average brick. So it's easier on the guys, it's a great product for building, and the offcuts that you find on building sites make great small forges. Winning! You know, one of the things that I'm really enjoying about being a blacksmith, now that it's about 4 or 5 weeks in, is learning the basics and being able to help you guys. I do hope that there are viewers out there who are watching me because I'm one of you. I'm going through the learning experience just like you probably are right now. And there'll be little things that I've learnt that are maybe just a step ahead of where you're at. And I can speed up your growth as a blacksmith. But for those who are just thinking about it, one of the basic things is your forge and your anvil. And then come a huge range of hand tools that, thankfully, being a blacksmith, you can make yourself. Just to bring you up to speed, if you're somebody who's not yet a blacksmith but likes the idea of it and you've wandered into this video, the anvil, the most important thing, they come in a range of sizes, they come in 2 different materials. You can get a cast iron anvil, which ain't so good because they break, but they're cheap. Or you can get a cast steel anvil like this. They're the ones that have a bit of a ring to them when you hit them instead of a dull thud. They have also a hardened face that's about 1 centimetre thick, hammer welded onto the top and then machined flat. When you get your anvil, it'll be undressed, naked. You'll have to put the edges on. Or, sorry, I should say, you'll have to take the edges off. When it's machined, they don't do any cleaning up. It's got a razor sharp edge along both sides. You need to round that off to about a 3mm or a 1/8 of an inch radius. And you'll also dress up the beak. We're going to talk about the parts of an anvil now. Starting at the bottom, we've got the base. It's wide, hopefully, and heavy. Also helpful if it has cutouts for hold down bolts, because you will need to bolt it down to something very firm like I have. I've used an oak stump in a drum full of sand, and it really holds it down, but I can still move it if I need to. That's important in my situation here. Coming up from the base, we've got the stem of an anvil, and then we've got the body of the anvil, and we come up to the working face and the beak or horn. 3 different names. I'm not going to give any one of them a priority because I've asked people and I've got 3 answers, pretty much with a 33 1/3% spread. So I'm not going to decide what you should call your protuberance. Moving in from there, we've got the cutting table, a small area of the anvil that's highly sacrificial. This is where you do your dirty work. Anything that's going to damage the anvil should be done in this area here. Moving on from there, we move on to the hardened face of the anvil. And as I said, when you get a fresh anvil, you'll need to radius those corners slightly, but this is where most of your work's going to be done. And then at the far end of the anvil, we've got 2 holes. We've got the hardy hole and the pritchel hole. The hardy hole is the square one, and that holds your hardies. Your hardies could be pretty much anything. They could be cutting or shaping tools of many, many descriptions. But the one thing they all have in common is a tapered shaft that allows them to be held firmly and squarely in your hardy hole so that you can hit it. The other hole is your pritchel hole. A pritchel hole is used for pritcheling. You'll use a pritchel or a punch to put holes in things that you're making, like the pivot point in a pair of tongs. Instead of drilling that where you remove and lose material, you can displace material outwards, so it provides a stronger boss on the pair of tongs, and it's quicker than drilling a hole. So you'll do that work over the pritchel hole. If the pritchel hole is too big or not big enough for the work you're doing, you can put a plate on the anvil made out of possibly 1 or 1.25 inches that you will drill various sizes of hole in, and that plate will become your go-to plate, or it'll become a sub-anvil. It's another piece that you can put on where you can do a range of work that you can't do on this anvil here. And you'll probably hold that down with one of these. I'm not sure what they're called. I call mine a hold down clamp. But they're a very old tool that was used by woodworkers for clamping things to their bench and also blacksmiths. With one of these you can hold a variety of pieces of metal down so that you can perform punching operations, cutting operations and marking operations. This is how it works. It's real simple. It'll hold down onto pretty much anything by just putting it into the pritchel hole and giving it a short, sharp smack on the top, and that will hold down anything firmly so that you can stamp it, cut it, slice it, whatever you like. And to remove it, all you do is give it a sharp rap up the bum, like that, and that removes it. So once again, one smack to set it, one smack to set it off. Now I do hope that you're enjoying my little foray into blacksmithing as much as I am, and I do hope that a lot of you are just a few steps behind me so that I can share with you these little gems of knowledge as I pick them up myself.